us that we overlook sometimes. And so I want you to notice in verse number 15 of 1 Corinthians 16, and when we studied the book of 1 Corinthians, I touched on this quickly, but I want to come back and park right here. And so his name is the household of Stephanas, the house of Stephanas, if I'm saying that correctly. And Paul says to the church of Corinth, right before he closes the letter, he says, I beseech you, brethren. And I'm going to jump down to verse 16 so you can get the whole thought here, and then we'll come back and look at the parentheses that the Holy Spirit puts in here. He says, I beseech you, brethren, that ye submit yourselves unto such, and to every one that helpeth with us and laboreth. So what Paul is saying is, don't get this mentality that that if it's not me, you're not going to learn anything from them. That happens a lot. Sometimes, I've literally had people ask me, Pastor, will you let me know when you're not preaching so I know not to come? You know, sure, I'll let you know, and I won't call that rat. No way. And so they had that mentality that if it's not from Paul, and so Paul had helpers that were filled with the Holy Spirit too, right? Are you with me on that? Paul had people that were in training that he was investing in that helped him, and he had to send. Paul couldn't be everywhere. And so, in fact, Paul could not come at this point back to Corinth because he was imprisoned in Rome. He was there, and so he couldn't get out. And so we find that he said, "I want you to submit to the house of Stephanas." He says, "They have helped me and they have labored." And he said, "I am glad of the coming of Stephanas and Fortunatus and Achaicus. For that which was lacking on your part, they have supplied, for they have refreshed my spirit and yours. Therefore, acknowledge ye them that are such." And so he was telling them, he says, take time to let them accomplish what I have sent them to Corinth to accomplish. Now, Stephanas, they knew who that was because he was from Corinth and his household. In fact, he was one of the first that got saved in Corinth when Paul started the church. In fact, turn back to chapter 1 and verse 16 with me. Chapter 1 and verse number 16. Look what the Bible tells us here. Chapter 1 of 1 Corinthians. And look with me here about verse number 16. And it says this. It says, he says in verse 16, "And I baptized also the household of Stephanas. Besides, I know not whether I baptized any other." Now, Paul would train workers fast. And so Stephanas and his house got saved, and Paul baptized them. But as other people started getting saved, he delegated that responsibility to others. And so with that in mind, that's a hard one for me. I've thought about delegating baptisms, but I'm going to be honest with you. In that area, I'm just selfish, man. I'm just selfish. It's hard for me to do that. One of the most precious things. I got if you could let me rant for just a little bit. There's a young family in our church, and they are here a good portion of the time. They were here last Sunday. And so he and his wife, they just had a baby, and so we are thankful. But he came to our church. Time went by, and it came to pass, if you will. Time went by, but when he was a little boy, he'd rode our buses. And when he was and so about 3-4 months ago, he shot me and texted me a picture of me baptizing him in the old auditorium in the old block building when he was about an 8-year-old boy. He got saved and born again and got saved, moved away, got married, they've moved back, and now he and his family, he and his wife and kids and I are in church, and so that was precious that I had that connection with him, that I baptized him. And if he'd have sent me a picture of Brother Peter baptizing him or somebody like that, I would have been jealous. I would have, in fact, I would have been mad at Peter, and Peter's already in heaven, and I'd have been mad at him. And so I can't tempt my spirit like that, right? So anyway, but Paul began to delegate the responsibility of baptism. Now, there's another reason why Paul would do that, because Paul was such a soul winner, and Paul was such a soul winning trainer, that so many people were getting saved, it was impossible for him to baptize every single convert. I mean, Paul was an amazing man. He was an amazing church planner. Paul could do something in a year and a half that it took most churches 40 years to do. But Stephanus, Paul personally baptized, one of the very first to get saved when that church started. And so he was certainly a founding member and had grown to be a helper in that. And the other two men, these are the only time they're ever mentioned, Fortunatus and Achaicus. These are the only time they mention. Now, Fortunatus is a Roman name, so he was either probably a Roman. So Stephanus was a Corinthian, but Fortunatus is a Roman name. So Paul either led him to Christ in Rome and sent him to Corinth to help, and we don't know very much about Achaicus. But with this in mind, the Bible tells us, and these three are the ones that delivered the letter to the Corinthians. They came to Rome to visit Paul, and he sent the Corinthian letter back with these three men. And they were the ones to deliver it. No doubt, Stephanus had the responsibility of probably reading the letter to the church. And Paul said, don't start pulling authority away from this letter, because I'm not the one here delivering it and preaching it to you. Now, as we think about this, Paul says something about them. And notice in the parentheses here, the Holy Spirit puts a parentheses, and he says this about this man. He says, "Ye know the house of Stephanus." You know them because they're there with you. "That it is the first fruits of Achaia." And watch this statement. "And they have," what's that next word? Underline that word, addicted. Now, typically, that's a bad word, isn't it? We think about a person that has an addiction. The word addicted means, and it says, they have addicted themselves to the what? Ministry of the saints. All right? And so, and of course, a ministry is built by saints. All right? So they have addicted themselves to the ministry. Now, with this in mind, when we think about the word addicted, it is typically done in a bad light. The word addicted means to be devoted to something. So when a person is addicted to something, they devote their life to it. And most people, they devote themselves, when you talk about an addiction, we're usually talking about people that have devoted themselves to something bad. For example, drugs, alcohol, and that type of thing. Some of the recovery ministries say that there's up to 20 different things that people can be addicted to at any given time, and it's amazing. And so, in fact, one of the recovery ministries because we study this because we're in a recovery ministry, says that 86% of people that live on American soil are addicted to bad things. 86%. All right. Why? Because we develop habits and we get devoted to those things, and things grab us, and they grab our flesh because it's through the flesh. And so many people get addicted to things that are destructive. One of the big addictions that they're really, I'm talking, massive people are talking about, secular people are talking about the addiction to devices. Right here. You can't, literally, this is destroying marriages, because people, they all day long, then they go home, and all they do is just sit there, and this is just is what they're doing. It won't surprise me if doctors don't start coming out and saying people are going to lose their fingers and thumbs. I don't know, and they're going to start falling off because of the the position it stays in all the time. But with this in mind, people get addicted to devices. One of the big addictions is artificial intelligence, Chat ADP, something like that. People are getting addicted to that. And they're coming out. Multitudes of people are coming out and saying, "I talked to demons on this thing." And in fact, I've sat very extensively and talked with somebody in our church that knows something about it. And in fact, I've watched an article where, and I've had two people tell me that literally that one in an article and one verbally, that they literally thought they were talking to a demon as they were talking to AI. And artificial intelligence is where a computer can think like and faster than a man can, a human being. Did you know in 2 years, and so artificial intelligence is the level of man? Okay. Did you know in 2 years they're going to come out with what's called super intelligence? Are you still listening to me this morning? Super intelligence. Did you know what they say that's going to be the level of? Deity. Deity. You do know Revelation chapter 13 talks about a beast that's not real, but it talks. It will force the whole world to worship it. It will manage the food system and the commerce system of the whole world. Because unless you have its number, you can't buy or sell. Right? I mean, you can see the handwriting on the wall as this is coming down the pike, right? And people get addicted to this stuff, and people get addicted to things that are destructive. They destroy them. And the house of Stephanus, they did something. They got addicted to something good. They devoted themselves to something positive. All right. And so it's okay to be addicted as long as you're addicted to the right thing. All right. There's no problem to be addicted to the Bible. You're addicted to the Bible, that's a good thing. All right? People say, "Well, you be careful, don't you?" Yeah, I mean, you're gonna get you're taking this church thing a little far, aren't you? And can I tell you something? You're going to get addicted to something. Might as well be something that's good for you. All right? All right? And so, I mean, we're all addicted to food. Okay? I mean, we have to eat, so we get addicted. Get addicted to things, right? Get addicted to food, all right. And I don't mean in a bad light. I'm just saying but it's okay to get addicted to the Bible. It's okay to get addicted to prayer. It's okay to get addicted to God. It's okay to get addicted to the ministry. Are you still listening to me this morning? Are you here? Okay, all right. We're not playing on AI this morning, right? Okay, all right. Maybe the thing to have done if people come to church and they just live on their phones. Why didn't you just stay home? But maybe you'll hear something. Maybe God will do this. But by the way, moms and dads, don't let your kids play on their phones, dear church. Okay. I mean, I understand it. Little kids, they color and all that kind of stuff. But don't let them play on their phones. So with that in mind, but addicted, but it's okay to get addicted. They were addicted to the ministry. They were addicted to they devoted themselves to the ministry. Now, with this in mind, and of course, what you're addicted to, you give your time to it, and you give your attention to it. You give your heart to it. You give your mind to it. What you're addicted to. All right. And so when we're addicted to the wrong things, that addiction can actually kill us. Okay, many people have lost their life early because they were addicted to something bad. When we're addicted to something positive and good and spiritual, it blesses our life. Okay, you will never find anybody that's been addicted to the ministry and addicted to the Bible and addicted to God that ever regretted what they spent their time doing. Because what we're addicted to, we give our time to it. Okay, and so and as we think, people can get addicted to their jobs. Okay, and so now I do realize that we have to balance our responsibilities. All right, now you can be so devoted to one thing one responsibility that you neglect another responsibility, and that's not good. Are you with me on that? Because duties never conflict. Say that with me. Duties never conflict. God has given us enough time to do every responsibility he has given us. So that's something that we do need to keep in mind. For example, let me use a character in the Bible who was addicted to the responsibility God gave him, but he neglected another responsibility that God gave him. King David. King David was addicted to his responsibility to Israel. God gave him the kingship. God gave him the covenant and told him what needed to be done. And he was so driven with being addicted to that responsibility, he neglected the responsibility of his family. And as a result of that, he paid a price. Before David died, he literally said, I'm not an example of someone you want to follow when it comes to that of a father and a husband. You don't want to follow me. Now, he was very devoted to God, okay? Now, if you want to learn something about how to love God, we can study David. You want to learn something about leadership? We can study David. You want to learn somebody who's dedicated to the spiritual responsibility? We can learn something from David. But God had him state that to teach us not to follow him. And I think there's a lesson in the Bible that we have to give ample of time. I hear people like I hear people say in the ministry. I hear preachers will say, "My number one ministry is my family," and I said, and I argue with that. I said, "That's not your ministry. That's your responsibility." Okay. I've interviewed people in the past, and they'll say, "Now I'm going to make sure that I've got plenty of time to give to my family because my family comes first. Then first is God, then family, and then my responsibility that I'll have with you." I've never hired a person that ever said that to me, not one, because what they're doing is they're making excuses on why they're going to come late and leave early. Because when I hire somebody, I do expect them to work. If they don't get that straightened out, they don't work for me forever. You understand what I'm saying? All right. Here's the bottom line. The priority level is not like that. It's not God first. Do you understand that every responsibility that God has given us, we should give it 100%? Okay. God's given me, I'm a Christian, and I'm to serve him. I need to give God 100% of that. God's given me a wife. I need to give 100% of my responsibility as a husband to her. God's made me a father. I need to give that 100%. God's made me a pastor. I need to give that 100%. You understand what I'm saying? And we could just keep going down the line. God's given us enough time to fulfill our responsibilities. And so with this in mind, as we think about being addicted to the ministry, it's okay to be addicted to something good, but at the same time, we cannot allow one responsibility to keep us from another responsibility. Does that make sense this morning? Now, for Paul, he talks about the house of Stephanas. I dare say that Stephanas fulfilled his home duties. There's no doubt about it. This was a man that was busy in the ministry, and he also took time to be busy in his home responsibilities. Because Paul mentions his whole household, which means that his whole house was an example. All right? And so he mentions the house of Stephanas. Notice what he says here in the parentheses. He says, the house of Stephanas, that is the first fruits of Achaia, and that, what's the next word? They. Circle that word, they. You know what that means? His wife and children were in on this thing. You know what that means? He was addicted to the ministry, but he did not allow one responsibility to slight the other responsibility. He somehow developed a love for this. So it can be done, all right? Notice he says, they have addicted, watch this, themselves. What does that tell you about his family? They've all addicted themselves, all right, to the ministry of the saints. But it's very important that we do not allow one responsibility to steal the time of another responsibility, because we have a responsibility of all of those things. And so let's get addicted to things that God tells us that we should be devoted to. Now, what does being addicted to the ministry look like? I've got to hurry. And so I guess here's what I want to say this morning is I want to say we ought to get addicted to God. We ought to get addicted to his ministry. We ought to get addicted to his book. We ought to get addicted to the mate that he's given us. We ought to get addicted to the children he's given us. We ought to get addicted to the grandchildren he's given us. We ought to get addicted to the and the jobs he's given us. If whether it's full-time ministry or secular work, we ought to be addicted to wanting to do the best that we can. And so be addicted to these things and get the bad addictions out of our life. Get the devices and get the sin and get the all of that. And listen to me carefully. What I've found is if you're addicted to enough good stuff, you don't have time to be addicted to bad stuff, because you've got to make time for bad stuff. Are you with me on that? So let's fill our time being addicted to good stuff. Are you with me? Does this make sense this morning? All right, people ask me, preacher, why do you not have a Facebook, all right, or any social media pages? Number one, because I don't have time. I don't think everything on there is bad. Preacher's anti-Facebook. I never said that. I'm anti-doing bad things on social media. All right, but we have one at our church, and if I need anything posted, I call my daughter and I say, honey, would you please post this out there and blast it? And she does a good job at it. She can do it in just 2 seconds. It'd probably take me 2 days to figure out how to blast it. And so I just don't have time. I can't keep up with the text that I've got and the emails I've got. I can't add another platform because everybody messages you on these platforms. And you know, in today's world, the moment they message you, you're supposed to get an answer back in 2 seconds. I miss the days of you know what I wish sometimes we could go back to? It takes you 10 minutes to call somebody. Yeah. You came in, I miss the days of a note taped to my door, 6 notes saying, call these people back, and I sit there, and I miss the days of writing a letter, and when you dropped it in the mailbox, you knew you wasn't going to get an answer for about a week, and sometimes when you text me, you probably could have got me quicker if you'd have mailed it to me, but just hang on, it's on there, I'll get to it eventually, all right? But we're talking about addiction. Now, Paul specifically spoke about their addiction to the ministry. All right? Now, this is something that we need to learn from, because every Christian needs to take time for ministry. Not just coming to church, but taking time for ministry. Now, let me say something about the ministry. Nobody, including myself, can do everything, but everyone can do something. Are you with me on this? All right. Now, look at what being addicted to the ministry looks like, because he says they were addicted to it. First of all, number one, an addiction to the ministry is a desire to be involved and help. Look at verse number 16. That ye submit yourselves unto such, and to everyone that, what's that word, next word? Helpeth. Now, the fact that they were to submit means that they were involved. And he says, to everyone that helpeth with us. All right? So, you want in. You want to help. You want to say that I'm involved in ministry helping someone. All right? And so, now they were helping Paul. And with that came a leadership position because they were told to submit to them. So they did have leadership authority, but at the same time they were helping Paul. Stephanus didn't want to be Paul, didn't need to be Paul, but he wanted to help Paul. He wanted to say, what can I do to help? I want in. Let me join. I want to. So he wanted to help Paul, who was already busy. And I find this, and this is in line with Scripture. When you study Nehemiah chapter 3, people were joining Nehemiah, and they just said, "Give me a spot on the wall. We want to help." I mean, just give me. I can't do the whole wall, but I can do this section, and I can do that section. And so we look around and we say just hop in here. I love what it says in Romans chapter 16 and verse 1. about a lady by the name of Phoebe. Phoebe was not a preacher, and she was a lady that that had a responsibility in the church, and she was not. It was not a major leadership position. She was under the authority of Paul. Okay, and so and some people say, well, preacher, I didn't think the Bible let women do anything. That's ludicrous. There's women working in the Bible all the time. It's just women were not pastors and preachers, and they were not deacons, and they did not usurp authority over a man in a public setting. All right, and that's when you study the scriptures, that's what happened. But look at Romans chapter 16 and verse 1. He says, "I commend you unto Phoebe." He tells the Roman believers, "I commend you unto Phoebe, our sister, which is a servant of the church, which is in Synchrea, that ye receive her in the Lord as becometh saints, and that ye assist her in whatsoever business she hath need of you, for she hath been a securer of many, and of myself also." Paul said, she's helped me. All right? And so Paul had given her a responsibility, and that responsibility was spilled over into helping the believers there in Rome. And so we see this. So an addiction to the ministry, there is a desire to help, to want to be in. All right? It's not where you just want to be served by the ministry and have no part in it. You want to hop in and have something to do yourself, and to help. Number two, to be addicted to the ministry is a desire to labor in it. It's okay if it requires work. What I've noticed is that people want to be in the ministry until they discover it requires work. It requires labor. Then they're quitting. People quit all the time once they desire. There's work to this thing. All right, what they do, they want to get in for the glory, and I'll say something about this in a moment. They want to get in for the glory. A lot of times people will come and surrender to something. And on purpose, I'll just be honest with you, I wait sometimes weeks and months to find out if it's real. All right, because I don't throw them into a major position within 2 weeks of them surrendering to something, because a lot of times the emotion and glory of something grabbed us, and I can't tell you the number of people that join the ministry, and then once they realize, I got to make time for this. Once they realize, this takes effort. I got to use brain cells. I got to use muscles. I got to sweat. I got to get up early, and I got to stay up late. They quit. All right. Why? Because they're not addicted to it. They don't want to give it the time it requires. Because whatever we're addicted to, we give time to it, right? Yeah, even sin, you got to give that time to. You got to have time to sin if you're addicted to sin. All right, and so, all right, look at verse number 16. He says that you submit yourselves unto such, and to everyone that helpeth with us, and what's that last word? Labor. It takes work. It takes labor. So a lot of people will never be in the ministry. They'll never help ministry. They'll never be addicted to the ministry because they're not willing to put forth any labor. But Stephanus and his family didn't mind working. And they did not have a spiritual ministry laziness. Many times the back seat takes to everything else. I find so many times that people are so wore out on life that they have no energy left to give to God in the ministry. The average family today bounces from ball field to ball field, and then God, their marriage, everything else has to take back seat. The one thing that I've noticed about marriages with children in their 30s and 40s that are getting divorced, just about, it seems like every single one of them have a little league schedule. And I mean, it's up early, it's all day long, it's at the ball field. The husband and wife never spend any time together. They're always with other people. They come home, throw dinner together. If even they have dinner at home, most of the time it's a drive-through. Everybody's back in bed to get up the next morning and do it all over again. They have no time for Bible, no time for prayer, no time for church, no time for ministry together. And church is something they do when ball season is over, when you have the little break. And now you got spring ball, summer ball, fall ball, winter ball. I mean, it's just, and then they get in school, and boom, it all starts all over again. And that's and families are falling apart. And do you understand that here's a family that worked in a ministry together? I remember our family, even as a pastor, And my wife still does it, but we would go visiting many times as a family together. We'd work those bus routes together, and sometimes people say, "Preacher, how did what did you do to put it on your children's heart to have a heart for the ministry?" And I said, I really don't know. We prayed that they would have a heart for the ministry. We never asked God to call our kids to preach. But if we did something, I think it's that we when they were young, we would just pull them along with us, and we took them with us, and we worked ministries together, and we made it fun, and we rejoiced when people were getting saved and people were getting baptized together. We didn't bounce them from ball field. I mean, don't get me wrong. They, in balance, they played ball. They had here at Riverland Christian Academy, we have a basketball season, a volleyball season, and we keep it short on purpose because we don't want it dominating families' lives. You with me on that? And so, but with that in mind, and I don't know if that's what did it. I really don't know. The only thing I know to do is just say God answered our prayer. But the thing is that a lot of people they hop in and they hop out of ministry because they realize it's work. It takes labor. Remember last week we talked about the Thessalonian church. They had a labor of love. Remember that? All right. Because when you love the Lord, you don't mind laboring for Him. Because you spend all your labor on what you love. And you love what you're addicted to. All right. People that are addicted to sin love that sin. They love that darkness. If you love a car, you'll spend all your time working on that car. All right. And so that's what we have. Number 4, an addiction to the ministry is also a desire to help supply the needs financially. Look what it says in verse 17. I'm glad of the coming of Stephanas and Fortunatus and Achaicus, for that which was lacking on your part, they have supplied. They supported it financially. They supported Paul's missionary efforts. And so the church at Corinth, what Paul means by that lacked your supply, that what was lacking on your part, the church at Corinth had actually made a commitment to support Paul, but they never fulfilled that commitment. But these three literally, and so the Stephanas, and not only him, but Fortunatus and Achaicus, literally, they wanted to put their money. By the way, what we're addicted to, we spend money on, right? I mean, we're addicted to cigarettes. We spend money on them. I had somebody handed a tract to somebody the other day, and in a restaurant, and they say, I don't go to church because every time I go to church, they looking for this right here. And then he walked straight from that table and went up to the counter and paid for his food. He didn't have a problem with paying for his food, right? All right. And so here's the bottom line. I don't mind tithing, and I don't mind giving an offering over and above because I'm addicted to the ministry. Because I don't mind spending what God gives me on what I'm addicted to. If you're addicted to golf, you spend money on golf. All right? If you're addicted to movies, you buy movies. If you're addicted to alcohol, you buy alcohol. If you're addicted to hunting, you buy guns and hunting equipment and pay hunting leases. If you're addicted to God, you don't mind giving to His work. If you're addicted to helping people, you don't mind giving to people and helping people. If you're addicted to missions, you don't mind giving to missions. You understand what I'm saying? So they helped supply. Why? Because they were addicted to it. They were addicted to this, and so they supplied that. Notice verse number 18. Notice an addiction to the ministry is a desire to refresh others. It's about others. Watch this, what it says in verse 18. For they have refreshed my spirit, watch this, and yours. Everywhere Stephanas went, somebody was refreshed. He made it his goal that when I leave you, I want you better than before I found you. You see, here's what we're addicted to, wanting people to refresh us. You know, we come moping in. How you doing today? I'm here. Barely. And that's your signal to that person to shoot me some uplifting steroids. Or shoot me. Maybe that too. Okay. But not Stephanas was like, I want to refresh somebody. I want to find somebody who needs refreshing and lift them up. Stephanus was in his Bible in the mornings, so he had something to give. You with me on that? And so he was addicted. And so when you're addicted to the ministry, you just want to help others. I mean, you got dollar bills in your pocket to stick in tracts. You maybe got a couple 20s in your wallet and think, who can I refresh today? You got some encouraging words. You've just got some things, and you got a compliment. You got a prayer list you're building, and I'm going to put them on my prayer list. I'm going to be praying for them, and you got some note cards, or you got some text messages you're going to send and say, I just want you to know I'm praying for you today, and because you're just always looking for someone to refresh. You're not looking for someone to refresh you. And listen to me carefully, all of us are at times that we need refreshing. Now, the Apostle Paul was addicted to the ministry, and watch this. He said, Stephanus, refresh me. You know, it's interesting. What's amazing is when you're trying to be a refresher and you get refreshed. Now, that's amazing when you come across another refresher. With this in mind, so you want, it's about others. It's not about us. All right. And then notice in verse 18. Watch this. When you're addicted to the ministry, you're not in it for the wrong reason, and you're not looking for public recognition. All right. Look at verse 18. Therefore, Paul says, acknowledge ye them that are such. Why was Paul telling the church at Corinth to acknowledge them? Because they were certainly not going to acknowledge themselves. Are you listening to me on that? Sometimes people will want to get into ministry because they think they're going to get acknowledgement. When you're truly addicted to the ministry, you don't have time to think about getting acknowledgement. You're just busy. And Stephanus wasn't looking. Isn't it interesting that God stopped and took time to call his name in the Bible? All right. He wasn't looking for acknowledgement, so God gave it to him. All right. And so as we think about this, Fortunatus wasn't looking. Achaicus was not looking for it. And so he just wanted God to get the glory. And then he goes on and mentions somebody else. Verse 19, therefore the churches of Asia salute you. Aquila and Priscilla salute you. Aquila and Priscilla was another couple, just like the house of Stephanus. I mean, they were amazing. And we could find people like this all through the Bible. And I remember listening to a story about I'm not a big football fan, but the guys that line up, and the guy that's supposed to knock everybody out of the way so the quarterback can so they can run to the goal. Who's that? What position is that? Well, anyway, that guy, you know the one I'm talking about. And I forget what team it was. I forget what the coach was. I just remember the story. It was down to the last minute. They were behind, but one more score could put them over, and they could win. The NFL wins the what? The Super Bowl. This was an amazing game. The coach had talked to the man that's supposed to get killed as he opens the door. And that man did his job. And as a result of that, the football had a free line to make it all the way across the goal line. He said, I was this professional lineman, whatever he was. He said, I literally was buried under people. He said, I had my face in the mud. I could hear the cheering. And he said, I lost a tooth in this thing. And I looked up to see everybody holding the quarterback on their shoulders. And he said, but But something happened. Because he said, I looked up and I thought, you're there because I'm here. He said, I happened to look over, and there was my coach on the sideline. He wasn't up there cheering with everybody else. The whole team was up there. My coach was on the sideline by himself. And he was looking straight at me. He wasn't looking at the quarterback. He was waiting on me to make eye contact. And he said he gave me a thumbs up and a wink. And then he took off running up there. And he said, as long as I knew that he knew, that was okay with me. And listen to me carefully. He knows. That's all that matters. Are you with me on that? You don't have to quit when you don't get certain recognition when he knows. Because we don't care about this recognition. I'm not saying that we don't do it every once in a while. Just like Paul did. Acknowledge them. They've done something. Acknowledge them. Take time to acknowledge them. And we need to do that. We need to have times we say thank you. And we all need to get better at that. But that's not what we're in it for. All we have to know is he knows. And that's all that matters to me. I think we need to learn something from that football player. Are you with me on that? I'm just saying today, let's get addicted. Let's make some time to get addicted to the ministry. And you need to get addicted to all the things you're supposed to be addicted to. That mate you got, get addicted to him or her. Those children, get addicted to them. The responsibilities that God's given you secularly with your job, get addicted to that. But God's given you enough hours in the day to get addicted to him and his ministry too. Get addicted to the Bible. Get addicted to prayer. But let's make time to get addicted to the ministry. Because there's something for all of us to do. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Ask God's blessings. Father, Lord, we thank you for the day. We thank you for your blessings. May you help us, Lord, to be addicted to the right things. And Lord, I pray for anyone today who's addicted to the wrong things. I ask you to deliver them. And Father, one of the ways that we can change that is give all of our time to the right things so there's no time for the wrong things. And so I pray that you'd help us with that. And we love you, Lord, and we thank you for your blessings. In Jesus' precious name we pray. And all God's people said, amen. All right. God bless you.